8YS3 feels choked up top. Some people like that. People are saying intake doesn't do much on stock car. Is that reality? Not seeing any horsepower quotes for intake on stock car. Everyone's quoting stage 1. Okay, so two things we need to address here.
Yep.
Your 8YS3 is not choked up top, but the turbo does eventually, on a stock motor, the power and boost do taper off. So you're noticing that as part of the tuning calibration of the factory. The intakes and intake systems on these, on Mark 7s, the factory one's a good flowing system, but the aftermarket versions, like all of our intakes, like our X34 and S34 and our P34, they all flow better than factory, and we quote the CFM flow numbers there for those intakes. The problem is, on a factory stock tune, the power of the motor is controlled by the ECU, not the hardware. So if you put the world's best flowing intake on a stock ECU controlled engine, then it's still going to produce the same amount of power, because the ECU is using a torque request method of controlling the engine. So when you push down the pedal, you're requesting a certain amount of torque from the ECU, and the ECU is controlling how much power the engine makes, not the air coming in and out of the motor.
Yeah, and on the S3, it's one of the first, maybe the first Volkswagen Audi that it's got it has a turbo shaft speed sensor.
Yeah.
So it knows exactly how fast that turbo's spinning. It knows how hard it's working, how much airflow is getting through the motor, and it's a very tightly controlled system to accommodate for different air density changes.
Yeah. So if you put any of our intakes on a stock vehicle, you will gain the benefit of the induction sounds, but it will not make any more power. The way you make more power is by doing an aftermarket tune like ours, which will unlock the additional power by modifying the torque request settings in the ECU, and the ECU will request and produce more power.
And keep in mind too that you'll still get a benefit from the intake. You won't necessarily see it at power at the wheels, but what you'll see is you'll have less. The turbo's working less, right? Like I said before, it's modeling that shaft speed. It knows how hard the turbo's working. That efficiency increase across the turbo is going to net better air intake temps. The whole system's just more efficient. You have to, you're cooling less hot air, or you've got.
It's just a more efficient.
It's a more efficient way to make that power. So you'll have, your peak power available for longer under more situations. So there are benefits. It's just not one of these things like swapping it on the dyno. You're going to see, a huge change on these right away.